Hey there, this is Beth with another YouTube Pagan Challenge video. This is video number 7. How do you view sacred texts and mythology? I think they're all valid. I think they're all valid. I think a lot of what I'd like to know has been destroyed by various things, whether it's time or man or other religions. I don't have, as a witch and a neo-pagan, I don't have something like the Bible that can be definitive. And I also feel that when you do have something that is definitive, and that's it, that's your book. In Christianity, it's the Bible, and that's codified, it's canonized, it's pretty much unchangeable at this point in time, even though it has been changed since the inception of the first biblical texts. For the most part, in this day and age, it's not going to change. It's done. It's so codified, it can't morph. It has a very hard time morphing to fit with the times, because this is the alleged word of God, which you want to believe that? Awesome. I don't think it's an invalid text. I think there's a lot to be said in the Bible. And yeah, I can't get past so-and-so begot so-and-so and then begat. I get about that part in Genesis, and then I'm like, okay, bye. It's not my text. It may be many people in my culture's text. I don't care. I consider it valid, though. Just because I don't practice it does not invalidate someone else's sacred text or stories. And I think in the modern era, we tend to dismiss things like fairy tales and the old stories. Because when you start looking at working with, say, fairy, you are looking at going back to reading things such as Thomas the Rhymer, Tamlin, going back to poems and older ways of conveying mythic structures, especially in the Northern European manner, with the sagas and different forms of epic poetry. So I think too, it depends on where you come from, what you have. If you focus in on Asian stuff, you may have a lot more, Taoism and stuff like that. You may have more text. I know yoga, you have probably, yoga, you do have more texts than you get in, say, trying to figure out, Celtic and stuff like that. And part of it is not having a written language. Or at least, you had runes, but they're not, they could convey words and meaning, but they're still not in many ways a proper alphabet. But, you have kanji that's pictorial, so, there's this whole wide range and sense. Excuse me. Northern European got codified with the Roman alphabet. We don't know what runes could have morphed into as far as a written language. And in many ways we have remnants of stones and things like that, epic sagas, epic poems, but most of those epic poems too also get translated through Christianity. Those poems and those songs are so rich, especially in mystery traditions. Willie's Lady is a great mystery song where singing, basically, Willie's Lady is Igraine. Is it grain? No grain? Oh, it's been a while since it. If you ever get a chance to, what is it? Let me grab that book. Okay, just had to check. It's been a while since I've read a lot of Celtic mythology and worked with this myth. It's Grian, who is symbolized in Willie's Lady. She is giving birth, and she's pregnant and can't give birth. And there's Michael Dames goes into the myth, if I remember correctly, quite quite in depth in his Mythic Ireland. And Willie's Lady is a song about her myth. It's a Christianized version of the myth, but it's all still there. There's runes, there's shards, there's hexes. Great learning story. And for me, really, it's those things that I look to. I look to history books, I look to the old stories, I look to old songs to find my sacred texts and my mythology in many ways. Like the Greco-Roman stuff, you know, in many ways is so easy because it's so well documented and it's so well latched onto by multiple cultures throughout time. You know, it's like Catullus. Monks preserved Catullus. Dirty poetry, pretty much. Some of it's romantic, but, you know, he has a good portion. You know, he was kind of a dirty poet, you know, and some of it's very pretty. You know, give me 1,000 kisses and then give me 1,000 more with that poem. But, you know, he also has those witty things about napkins and insulting people about napkins. He does it. And monks preserve that. But they didn't preserve, you know, more northern myth. By the time we hit the north, you know, with the Christianization of Europe, I mean, it starts in the south and then slowly goes north. So by the time you hit the north, the south has been Christianized for quite a long time, and you're looking at roughly 1100s for almost 1200s, I think. 1100 to 1200 for the Christianization of Northern Europe, which, you know, is quite a bit of, almost like 1,000 years passes before it really starts to sink in up north. And too, with up north, you know, that whole Mediterranean area, Italy with the Renaissance happening, and the harking back to the Greco-Roman eras with art and statue and things like that. You see that get latched onto, whereas the northern religions just get more eradicated than latched onto and documented. They're seen, you know, even in Caesar's day during the, I guess you could argue, once they started having the kings in Rome and the republic aspect of Rome started fading away, is when Rome really started going downhill, according to the Romans. You know, and really I think that's when you start to, you know, you don't see as much absorption. You see it a bit in, oh, the sun's trying to poke out. You see it a bit in Britain to a certain extent, but for the most part you see more of an eradication of stubborn religious groups. And I think too, you know, you see that too with the early, really Christianity really was in the beginning a form of Judaism. It wasn't its own separate entity for quite a while. But you see that Rome more willing to just squash it as opposed to absorb it. It also becomes very hard to absorb a monotheistic faith into a polytheistic faith. And where was I? I feel like I went way off topic. Sacred texts and myth, but you know, I just see them all as like valid. And I think too, part of it is because like most of what I am currently practicing is either so freaking old, such as Sumerian stuff. We don't know. Time has destroyed that in many ways. You know, what people haven't done, time has done, and then the stupid freaking fundamentalist Muslims are blowing up their heritage along with ours. Ugh, okay, not getting going on that whole thing. But anyway, so, you know, Sumer is pretty much, we have quite a bit. And having seen those things, holy crap, cuneiform? It's like they took little lasers. I mean, Little styluses. I mean, if I took a stylus and like did stuff in clay, it'd look like crap. It's like precise. It's really freaking precise. They're very awesome. Having seen one of the tablets from that era, oh my god, they're so freaking cool. But most of that has been destroyed, eroded, corroded, whatever, just by the nature of time. So much is just destroyed by the nature of time, let alone warfare, man, suppression. Whoa! The clouds should hopefully come back any second, and I can see, and you can see again. I think we're going back under. Thank God. Ugh, I was blinded there for a minute. But so much, in that area has been destroyed just by time alone. And that's kind of the cool thing about peat bogs is peat bogs save things a lot. And even though Tigris Euphrates area is very much a desert, things just don't hold up. Wood and stuff doesn't hold up. But so much of what I have does not have a sacred text. There are hints, and they're heavily filtered down through oftentimes Christianity, especially in the Northern experience, since there was no codified written language. So, you pull from, the sagas and Snorri and things like that, but you also have to, I think, song. Song is often ignored in finding those tidbits. Song can tell you a lot about a culture. It's like stomped bread. It's a song. Garmana, I think they're Swedish. I think they're a Swedish band. Can't remember. Did a version of stomped bread. And basically the basis of stomped bread, which is a Christianized Nordic song of this kind of mean girl who's a servant and her mother dies and she's like, yeah, screw that shit. She can have a pauper's grave. And the lady of the house is not hearing any of that. And so the lady of the house tells the girl she has to go home, gives her the money to take care of her mother, and gives her some fresh bread. So the little servant girl goes on her way home, and she's walking along, and she comes to this big puddle. And she's very proud, and she's very prideful and vain, and doesn't want to ruin her shoes. So she takes the bread, throws them into the puddle, and then she proceeds to try and cross over the bread. But because she's such a petty little wench, she gets sucked down into the bowels of hell for all eternity. And that kind of thing tells you something about a culture. And even though this is a Christianized version of a song that's probably very old, it tells you a lot about how you treat family and how you think about family. And that within the older traditions, there probably was a charitable vibe going on in the Old Norse. And, there's so much. You piece it together through these little things. It's like Willie's Lady and recognizing that, you have Brienne being represented in the story. It's telling the story of her in a Christianized manner, in a manner that has been made acceptable to sing later on. So, yeah, because I don't, yoga, I get texts and they're great. But a lot of what I get to do is piece together stuff because it's gone. It's either been destroyed by time or by man. And, it just is what it is. And I don't, if I come across them, awesome. If I don't, well, that's why you read things like Mythic Ireland, which actually I should really reread. I haven't read this in a long time. It was very, very interesting. I remember it being just lots of like dense, lots of information. But yeah, that's my take on sacred texts, mythology. I consider it all valid. It's all sacred, and it's what you make of it, and you should be as a pagan, and even a New Ager, New Agers do this too. They're morphing and changing and growing. As you grow, your faith should grow and change with you. I do not see, just because it says blah in this book, that it must always be so. Things change, people change, times change. And I think, your sacred texts and your stories should change, and the meaning should, in a way, morph with them. Okay, that's it for this topic. I'll talk to you next time with question number 8. Bye.